Good evening and welcome. This is a public hearing of the Zoning Board of Appeals of the City of Evanston. The zoning ordinance directs this body to hear applications for major variations, special uses, and appeals from decisions of the zoning administrator. Depending on the type of matter, this board will make either a final determination or send its recommendation to City Council. Melissa, will you call roll, please?
Mary McCauley,
Present.
Lisa Deacon,
Here.
Scott Gingold,
Present.
Mary Beth Burns,
Here.
Myrna Aravallo,
Here.
Violetta Cullen, and Kirill Miranchev.
Present.
And with 6 people tonight, we do have a quorum. Also present tonight is Zoning Administrator Melissa Klotz. This is a formal meeting, and there are rules that govern our proceedings. Most importantly, only one person speaks at a time, so all testimony may be accurately recorded. Anyone who wishes to address the board regarding any matter on the agenda will have an opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. Our procedure is to hear from staff on the documents on file, and then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. Next, persons who wish to make a statement regarding the matter may do so at that time. Any person with a legal interest in property located within 500 feet of the subject property may present evidence, reasonably question witnesses, or seek a continuance of the hearing. When all supporting and opposing testimony and statements have been heard, the applicant or appellant will be given the opportunity for rebuttal or a closing statement. Then the board will close the record and begin deliberations. All testimony will be under oath. Although we do not apply the strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony or statement to your personal knowledge. When you address the board, please state your name and address and sign in on the provided sheet. Our meetings are audio and video recorded. Please make sure that you are at a microphone when asking questions or making statements so that you can be properly recorded. All proceedings are subject to broadcast at a later date. Any matter not concluded at tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting. There are 4 items on the agenda tonight. I will point out that the third item, which is 2510 Green Bay Road, and if anybody is here for that, that has been continued to February 19th. So if you're waiting to talk to us about 2510 Green Bay Road, please go home. So there are 3 other items on the agenda. 1905 Church Street, are you guys here? Okay. And 1030 Davis Street. And 524 Main Street. You guys are here. Okay. All right, everybody's here. And the first item on our agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes from December 18th. Has everybody had a chance to read those?
Yes.
Any modifications?
No.
Fantastic.
I move that the minutes from the prior meeting be approved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I will note that those not voting were not at that meeting. Moving on to new business, which is 1905 Church Street. Melissa, will you read before we get this started, everybody who's going to talk to me tonight, who's come up and testify, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? Thank you. Now, Melissa, will you read 1905 Church Street into the record, please?
Madam Chair, I have to recuse myself. This is a project of our company.
Okay, thank you. We still do have quorum, so we're in good shape.
Jacqueline B. Hoffman, lessee, applies for a special use permit for a Type 2 restaurant, Spice, in the B2 Business District, Zoning Code Section 6933, and the OWE West Evanston Overlay District, Zoning Code Section 61515. The Zoning Board of Appeals makes a recommendation to City Council, the determining body for this case. Documents included as part of the record include special use application submitted December 12th, 2018, business summary, sustainability practices worksheet, plat of survey, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, and Dapper meeting minutes excerpt of December 19th, 2018.
Thank you. If you guys would like to come up and present your project. And if you wouldn't mind starting with your name and business address, please. Thank you.
So
Jacqueline Hoffman.
I'm Deidre Hill, 1905 Church Street. So, do you guys want me to tell you about Spice?
I need you to speak up a lot louder, please.
What would you guys want me to start with?
Tell us about your project.
Yep, tell us
Okay.
about your project. What are you doing?
This restaurant is supposed to be a family-oriented, community-filled Jamaican cuisine. And the reason why we wanted to do that is because my mom has a passion for cooking, and we thought it would be a great idea to give back to the community and liven up the community because a lot of people love her food. And that's why we're here now.
And how long has your mom how long have you been cooking? Have you been doing it professionally? Have you owned a restaurant before?
Well, I don't own a restaurant, but what I do, like part-time, I cook out for like small events, and I do it at my home, and I do like for churches, my church, and I do it for like friends and family.
So you do a bit of catering right now?
Yeah, a little.
And how long have you been doing that?
Well, my mom is a cook in Jamaica, and I grew up knowing how to cook, and I've been doing it from I got here from 2001.
Okay. But this is your first restaurant?
This is my first restaurant.
Okay. And go ahead.
What are the hours that you plan to operate the restaurant?
Well, starting from it will open. I'll open at 6 just to prep stuff and make sure everything in place. But to open it, I would open it probably at 9 o'clock. 9.
So there will be breakfast fare, or people will come in at 9 o'clock and get what?
Well, I wasn't planning for breakfast right now, maybe in the future, but I was thinking more of doing dinner. So maybe in the future, depends on how it goes, and lunch, how it goes, then probably I improvise breakfast, but not on my schedule right now.
Okay, so how late do you plan to stay open to the public?
Say maybe 9 o'clock, 8, 9.
Okay. And I think I read in the packet that you're planning to have it be carry-out only, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that corner, right where ETHS is, right?
Yes, sir.
There's not a lot of parking right there. So where do you expect the people who come to get your food will park?
You know, Mr. Penn.
Do you guys mind if I talk?
No, not at all.
Yeah, whoever wants to
Okay,
answer.
so we plan on even having them park across the street. Can you guys hear me? Across the street, in front of the YOU right there, in front of those places, usually have parking, just not at the hours that school gets out. And they're parking on Brown, so it's not supposed to be, so combusted. So to get their food and then they leave out. So across the street from the high school and in front of the.
And let me intervene. I'm not really catering. Mostly what I'm catering is for the neighborhood. I'm not catering for people like to come in and drive in and stop there for food. Mostly what I'm catering for is like the school is there. We have YOU beside there, and most of the neighborhood around there. So I'm not really focusing on like people driving by, stopping by to pick up food. I'm mostly focusing on like just the environment, the neighborhood.
People
right
on
there.
foot.
Yeah.
Who's going to work at the restaurant other than you?
Two.
Oh, that's
just
it.
2 persons. It's a small place.
So you're going to work morning till night all day? Or are you going to have other employees that...
Two. No, we're not doing a lot of dishes. We're just doing like maybe 5 meals per day. So it's not like I don't think it requires more than 2 persons in there.
Okay. Do you live in the neighborhood, or how are you going to get to work?
Well, I live in Evanston over 10 here. I moved to Mount Prospect 3 years now, and I'm recently coming back now. So my new address now will be at 1410 Chicago Avenue.
Mom.
So I'm coming back here. She think I let out so much information, but
Okay.
I'm just being honest.
So on Chicago, how are you going to get to work? Are you going to drive?
Well, yeah.
We just
Okay.
carpool.
And where will you park?
Well,
In the back?
in the alley, there's a back there. I can park on Brown and walk over. I can park. I think on Brown, I would not park in the front of the building or use the parking at the front.
Okay.
I'll park on Brown, street over.
Yep.
Do you know if YOU has opened its parking lot to share with the businesses? I know that there was some discussion with the Church Street Merchants Association because there had been a number of spaces designated when the high school owned that lot right at the corner. And YOU had initially said that they intended to still honor that sharing arrangement. I don't know if they have formally done so, but that might be something that you would want to check.
Well, that sounds interesting, and I will look into that, but I have no idea about that.
Never heard of that.
Is the Church Street Merchants Association still meeting, do you know?
Can you repeat that?
The Church Street Merchants Association, there was a group that included C&W and Ebony Salon and, a number of the businesses right there in the neighborhood that were meeting regularly with some staff from the city as well. So that would be worth looking into
Okay.
also.
I did speak to the gentleman that owns the corner store, and he did give me a booklet, and I didn't tell him about the project, but he gave me a booklet about businesses, and he told me that I should reach out.
Yeah, no, it would be a really great idea to check with all of the businesses right there because they'll know what resources are possibly available.
Certainly.
What kind of waste do you expect to generate?
Well, I was talking about I was thinking of doing like the eco-friendly. That's what I want to do for carryouts.
And that's a container. You mean like what type of waste we choose to
Well,
accumulate a week, like on a weekly basis?
Yeah, I mean, if there's carry out, obviously people are going to walk out
Oh,
with
there's a trash.
paper and plastic,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And then you're going to cook, so there's going to be oil or other food waste. So are you already familiar with how you're going to dispose of that and where?
Well, I want to get in contact with Growth because I've been informed about that, and I was going to talk to them for them to give me more information about how I go about doing that. That's what I was going to do.
Is there a dumpster behind in the alley?
There is.
There
And
is?
There is a garbage can right in front of the restaurant. And I
Right.
thought that would be very useful for the takeout in case someone did happen to eat their food.
Okay.
And don't throw it up.
And deliveries, how are you guys getting produce and meats and all your commissary items?
Well,
Are you guys shopping for them in your own car?
I'm personally going to do it with my own car. Like,
So you're going to go to the store and bring it back in your car?
yes, I'm bringing it back
Okay.
in my car.
And is there alley access behind the building?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay. And so you're planning on bringing the food in, the raw materials for your delicious food in through the back?
Yes.
Okay. And how about deliveries of paper towels and napkins and soap and plasticware? Where are you guys buying all of that? Is that getting delivered, or are you going to the store and buying that as
I'm
well?
going to the store and
Buying all that stuff too?
Yes.
Okay, so you're not having anything delivered?
Not at the moment.
You guys are going to go pick up everything and take care of it? Okay.
How long is your lease for the space?
Well, I think I was talking to Mr. Johnson, and I would really, because of the investment I'm doing, I really don't want a 1-year lease. I would really like maybe approximately 3 years.
And do you know how long this space has been vacant?
I think it's not long. I think it's going around maybe 6 months now since it's vacant there, approximately that.
And I see in the application materials that it looks like you reviewed the city's sustainability practices and are aware of those. And I think you started to speak of using eco-friendly containers. Can you speak more to that point?
Well, when I came to the last meeting and I talk about the foam the other container and they introduced me, I listened the email and said that it would be much better. So I'm going with the eco-friendly. So I have more research to do on that. Where am I going to get it? But that's what I'm looking into to use. But for more information, I want to research it more and find out where I can get it. So I need to do more research on that.
And, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay.
And storage is a factor, so it also has to be able to be stored. Like, we thought about styrofoam, but it was not recyclable, and then my mom agreed about the eco-friendly, and we need something that'll be stored properly, So that's a great idea for the.
Take up less space.
Yeah.
Okay. I saw in the DAPR notes that they did suggest, no use of styrofoam containers.
Right,
Yeah,
and
in the
that's why I'm going
carryout.
against it.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board? Okay. Thanks very much. We're going
you
to see if
very much.
anybody's here to talk about your project. Is there anybody who has any comments, who'd like to make any comments about 1905 Church Street? Come on up. If you can start with your name and address, that would be fantastic. Were you here when I swore everybody in?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Good evening. Carlos Sutton, 1821 Darrell. Live in a target area there. And first, I'm sorry, Macaulay, I'm here to approve the recommendation. Generally, I come here to call your committee a rubber stamp for all developers, but I'm not going to do that tonight. Thank you for encouraging more people to come to our community with these types of businesses. I do appreciate it. I'm here to suggest a recommendation for the variance, and that we're lucky to have this building. My only concern is that the city has decided to facelift the other neighboring buildings. And when Sam's building was not considered in that, I was a little upset and concerned, since he is the only black-owned business left in that community. That's it. Thank you.
Before you go, can I encourage you, turn around, come on. So can I encourage you to reach out to your alderman, because they can help get that business owner to apply for economic development funds, which is how the building on the corner was financed. So I think if you go that route, it's a new year, new pot of funds, see what you can get.
I will try that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right. We are going to give you one more opportunity. If there's anything else you'd like to add, you don't have to. It's completely fine. You guys are good? All right, fantastic. With that, we are going to go ahead and close the record and begin deliberations. Thoughts?
I think it's a good project, and I'm for it.
I think it's exciting to see community members want to support the commercial districts. And the owners have done catering in the past. I think they've been responsive to some of, DAPR's requests in looking into sustainability, measures as it relates to the carryout containers. I agree with such recommendation, because when I see those styrofoam clamshell containers, I just, I have a hard time with that. A question for staff. So on the sustainability measures, can that be conditioned in our approval of special uses, or no? Like, we ask them to sign off on the sustainability practices, and they have several options that they can, say that they're going to follow. What latitude do we have as a board?
The approving ordinance references the sustainabilities worksheet as a condition.
But
That was
for
vague.
example, that worksheet is fairly vague and doesn't, for example, address styrofoam takeout containers that I recall.
So in this case, the worksheet was filled out before the issue of styrofoam came up. So in this case, it would just refer to the testimony on record where she is stating that she will not use styrofoam.
Thank you.
What are the conditions-wise? What are the staff recommended hours of operation for that location?
There is a Type 2 restaurant nearby, Papa Philly's, that has hours conditioned to 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. So something in that ballpark would be appropriate.
And I think that the corner store next door opens earlier than 8 or around 8.
Yeah, no, it's earlier.
Okay. Any other comments from anyone?
The 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. is customer hours, right? Not.
Yes. Not when she can start cooking. Anybody else? So I'm glad to have you coming back to the proprietor coming back from Mount Prospect. It's good to have you back. I think it's, again, exciting to have more homegrown talent here and encouraging small family-owned businesses. I think those are Those are great to add to the fabric of our city. So there are 7 special use standards for a special use, and I'm going to run through all of those. Sorry, 9. There are 9 of them, and I'm going to run through them. Number 1, it is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. It is, and so that standard has been met. Number 2, it is in keeping with purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time to time. The comprehensive general plan, 2 of the goals are to promote growth and redevelopment and to strengthen our economic base. And the infill of this business into this location certainly achieves both of those goals. So that standard has been met. Number 3, it will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types on the immediate neighborhood and the effect of the proposed type of special use upon the city as a whole. I don't think that there aren't many special uses type 2 in this particular area, and so I do not think that it will cause a negative cumulative effect. So I think that that standard has been met. Number 4, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of the property in the neighborhood. Because it is filling a vacant space, it certainly will increase the value of the property and bring more people to the area, which can only help the other businesses. So that standard has been met. Number 5, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. It is easily accessible via bus lines and by feet and bikes. And so I do think that it is adequately served by public facilities and services, so that standard has been met. Number 6, it does not cause undue traffic congestion. The testimony is that the bulk of the business is expected to be from the neighborhood and will be walked or biked, and so we're not expecting a ton of new traffic to the area, so that standard certainly has been met. Number 7, it preserves significant historical and architectural resources. Unfortunately, it's not an attractive building, and that does not apply. Number 8, it preserves significant natural and environmental features, and that standard does not apply either. And number 9, it complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances. It certainly will once it gets its business license and everything else. So with that, can I have a motion with some hours of operation? I think we go 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. or 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I think any of those are fine.
Can I
Yep.
just make one comment?
Sure.
I would like one of the conditions as well, because that is such a busy corner and because there are so many students who go by and may run in to grab a veg patty or some such thing, that we also ask for a litter pickup plan so that we know that the litter is properly dealt with.
That's actually part of the sustainability ordinance that they have signed, so they are on board. They are required to do that anyway.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So I make a motion in the matter ZBA 18 ZMJV-0105 regarding the application for 1905 Church Street that we recommend to City Council to approve the special use requested, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the hours of operation be limited from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 2, that the applicant and any other employees working on site be required to use parking other than the metered parking on Church and Dodge. And 3, that the project otherwise be developed in accordance with the documents and testimony submitted, including with respect to sustainability, eco-friendly materials, and where deliveries will be taken.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And with a vote of 5-0, you will go to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Good luck with your project. Sure. Mr. Miranchev, can we have you back? Thank you. All right, moving on to 1030 Davis Street. Melissa, will you read that into the record, please?
Marty Kless, property owner, applies for a special use permit for a Type 2 restaurant, Phil's Coffee, in the D2 Downtown Retail Core District, zoning code section 61134. The Zoning Board of Appeals makes a recommendation to City Council, the determining body. Documents included as part of the record include special use application submitted December 7th, 2018, business summary, sustainability practices worksheet, plat of survey, image of property, aerial view of property, zoning map of property, and Dapper meeting minutes excerpt of December 19th, 2018.
All right. Come on up. Tell us about your project. It's interesting because I was just walking down the street the other day and I thought, what the heck is going to go in that space?
Now you
And
know.
lo and behold, here you are.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I'm glad to be back. My name is Marty Kless. I'm an Evanston resident and the property owner of 1030 Davis Street, as well as the neighboring property at 1026 Davis Street, which houses Taco Diablo, Lulu's, Five and Dime, and also Spanga. I want to provide a little bit of background on the project and the building, and then I'm going to have Mel Finley from Phil's Coffee come up and talk about Phil's business operations, as well as their intent to kind of open up an Evanston location. The subject property is located at the southeast corner of Oak Avenue and Davis Street. It served as the studio media recording studio since, the early 1980s until I purchased it in 2015. Since then, it's been vacant, and I'm excited to have this tenant or potential tenant come in and occupy the space because it's a cool location, cool building, single-story boat truss building with about 6,000 square feet. In the process of undergoing a renovation, in which I'm going to subdivide it into two units, a north unit and a south unit. Both units will share an enclosed trash room at the rear of the building off a private alley exclusive to 1030 and 1026 Davis. And Phil's, again, will take the north unit, which will be about 2,000 square feet, and they'll have their main access off Davis Street. Phil's is a California-based coffee shop with numerous locations out there. They're looking to expand to Chicago. Mel and her team will talk a little bit more about their operations. I'm not a coffee guy. I've never been to Phil's, but what I see online makes me want to drink Phil's because they've got a great product offering, loyal fans, and really do a nice job with their store design and also involvement in the communities that they have locations at. So again, I'm excited about bringing Phil's on board. I think it'd be great for that particular corner. It's been vacant for the last few years. It's too prime of a building, too prime of a gateway to get into that downtown corridor to keep it empty. And I think it will just kind of complement this resurgence that's been happening on that 10,000 block, or excuse me, the 1,000 block of Davis over the past few years. And now I want to turn it over to Mel to have her talk a little bit
Can
more
I ask you a question
Yeah.
first? Sorry, as the
No
building
problem,
owner. So obviously, this is the retail core of Evanston.
Yes.
So customer parking is what it's going to be, and
Correct.
to these, but. What parking for employees are you providing as the building owner,
I'm
if
going to
any?
ask Mel to address it because she's the Phil's. But in terms of parking that's available, there are the parking lots just next to Smiley's. That's short term. There's also the parking garage down the street, the main one. So I think again they're going to encourage their employees to utilize public transport as much as possible. Given you've got the CTA and CTA and Metro Stop a block and a half away, and additionally there's numerous bus routes that service the site.
So are there no parking spaces
There are
coming with the
no
building?
parking spaces. That building, both 1030 and 1026, does not have any parking spaces. That's
Okay.
correct. Yeah.
And to clarify, so 1030 Davis Street is subdivided into two units,
Plan
a
is to
north and a
subdivide.
south.
Correct. So
And
what will happen? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, but I was curious if there's been a tenant identified for the south unit.
I am at least with a tenant for the south unit, correct. So it's another Evanston business that's looking to relocate for a larger space. So the rear unit will have about 3,500 square feet of space, and that's servicing their growing their practice. Right now they're on Davis in the 500 block and maybe only have about 1,500 square feet, so they're looking for a larger space. So
And what type of business will that be?
it's a kind of medical chiropractor type of business, yeah. So, and that unit will be in the south, and then that will be accessed off of a new entrance via Oak. Yeah. Yeah.
And you said you're under lease with them already?
At least we're in negotiations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
I think that's all we've got
All
for
right,
you.
I'm gonna
We're ready to
turn it
hear about Phil's Coffee. Did you bring samples?
We didn't bring samples, we do have visuals.
Thank you.
We're going to enter this, oh, sorry, go ahead, as applicant's Exhibit 1. Do you need to write on it? No?
Hi, as Marty said, I'm Mel Finley. I'm VP of Real Estate for Phil's Coffee, and I'm also here with Jim McPhail, our Chief Growth Officer, and Kim DeGuzman is our Head Designer, and she's who handed out the packets for you guys. We currently are based out of San Francisco, and we have 45 stores in California and 5 stores in Washington, D.C. And so we're hoping to add 4 stores to Chicagoland this year, with hopefully an opening here in Evanston by the fall.
And is Evanston your first one here? Of the 4 you're hoping?
It is one of the 4, correct, yes.
And what other locations are you hoping to open in?
We currently have signed leases in Wicker Park and Hyde Park, and we are working on another 4th lease that's not finalized yet. But it's in Chicago, yeah. A little background on Phil's Coffee. Originally started over 30 years ago with Phil, who had a convenience store in San Francisco's Mission District. And he turned it into a community living room with his own dining table, and the passion to have a community gathering place where people could connect over a cup of coffee that was personally crafted for them. And over time, Phil personally roasted, blended, and held tastings in that community coffee room, perfecting over 20 customized blends. And that's now our mission, is to better days, 1 cup at a time, 1 community at a time. And we hope to build a community coffee house here in Evanston where people can connect, gather, work, or study in warm, welcoming, and vibrant environments, as you can see through the booklet that you have there. The design of our Evanston store will be bespoke to this market, to this neighborhood. It will be unique from all of our other Chicago opportunities. But central to Phil's, our design is still centered around a community living room, inviting folks to stay a while, and a barista bar where we can connect with our customers with that personalized cup of coffee that's made to order for them. Our ethos of 1 cup at a time is because each cup is handcrafted for that customer and made to their liking. So that's perfect for them on every sip. Very different from any other coffee house. So as I said, we have over 20 blends. So when you come into our coffee house, you meet with your barista and you pick your blend, or have your barista help you discover a new blend, and then we customize it right there with a fresh brew and how you like your milk and how you like your sugar. We do that all for you.
What other food, if any, will be served there?
Yeah, there's a sample menu in there, but we work with a local bakery, so we'll have pastries and bagels, and then on site we do have toasts and spreads that we make, and then a very light menu of breakfast sandwich and
A local
salad.
bakery here or a local bakery in California?
Here.
Oh.
Local to Evanston, can you share who that is?
That hasn't been decided yet. Yeah. Our typical hours of operation, like most coffee shops, it's Monday through Friday, 6 to 8, and then on the weekdays, 7 to 8, 7 to 7, maybe on Sunday.
And how many employees will be on site at a given time, maximum?
We have about 30 employees, but maximum, we have between 4 to 10, just depending on the peak time of the day.
Okay. And so have you looked into arrangements for having your employees who do drive park other than at metered parking in the retail area?
One of the reasons we did like the site was because of the access to public transportation. Our employees always generally come from the community. So we obviously will encourage our employees to use public transportation.
Yeah, I mean, that's great.
Yeah,
and
most
a lot
of our
of
employees,
businesses
they
commit to
cycle.
that.
Yeah.
But you don't know who you're going to hire.
Right.
So
Yeah.
are you fine? Most of the time we condition special use permits in retail areas like this on the condition that employees be required to find non-metered parking. And are you fine with that?
That's the condition, yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty typical.
Yeah, pretty typical. Yeah, and, we really only have, I think, most of our employees are one's full-time, which is our store lead, and then the rest are part-time employees that work a, pretty typical retail shift. So they won't be parking all day. It's not 10 employees parking, all day.
Yeah, but you can imagine like in a retail area where there's all this metered parking
Sure.
for customers from Evanston and elsewhere to park, that if all of the retail operations had their employees parking there,
Right.
there'd be nowhere for
Yeah, and
customers
it's
to park.
quite difficult for an employee to every 2 hours go out and
That too.
fill a meter, so.
I'll help too. Hi,
Sorry.
I'm Jim McPhail. I'm actually with Phil's as well. Mel and I will tag team. Also, 2000 alum of Northwestern, so I'm glad to be back and very excited to bring our concept to Evanston. We do actually have a lot of our teammates come by public transportation. We're an urban concept. We're a downtown concept, so we do have a lot. We will work to have some sort of off-site opportunities, but 90% or more of our teammates usually come from public transportation or bike. Quite frankly, we have a very young millennial workforce as typical. We also probably represent having a lot of our community base come out of Northwestern as well.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
Can you guys address, since the subdivision of the space, you don't have access directly to the alley? So dumpsters, deliveries, all that good stuff. How are we doing that?
So, correct, we don't have direct.
Microphone, please.
There is no direct access to
Yeah.
the alley from the north unit, just because that corridor would suck up valuable real estate.
Sure.
And so the plan is to kind of take the trash off or out of the Oak Avenue entrance and wheel it down the sidewalk to the rear private alley in the enclosed trash room there. Obviously, there's concerns about spillage, so there's going to be a concerted effort to make sure that there isn't waste getting on the floor, and they don't have the type of, I guess, foods that like a typical type 1 restaurant, so that shouldn't be as frequent of a process and as messy of a process. In terms of deliveries, you asked, the plan is to utilize a private alley, similar to what we're doing right now for Taco Diablo and Lulu's and Five and Dime. Our deliveries come via the big box trucks and park in the alley and do that. These guys are not going to need not going to need the box trucks. They're going to be using more of the Sprinter type of vans, given a different type of product offering and daily fresh baked items.
So they're still going to go into the back and then wheel it down the sidewalk?
Correct.
And how many times a day do you guys take out garbage?
Sometimes twice a day. I mean, most of it is compostable ground beans that we try to recompost, but most of our byproduct actually goes to our consumer, right? So we have compostable cup, compostable lid, compostable silverware, everything. We're very green focused, coming from San Francisco, and having to have gone under the SF city codes, which are all very compostable. So I think we're a great blend for what's going on in Evanston. So we don't have a tremendous trash presence, and most is recyclable or compostable.
I have a question. When you kind of say that many of your customers, and I see your age frame, which is good, they could be biking.
For sure.
Do you think that you will put a bike rack?
We've been working with Marty on that. We know that he's been working with you guys on that condition.
Biking is great. I love to bike. I bike when I go to the restaurants next door and go to work. The question of, do we want to put a bike rack? Yes. The question is, what's the most logical location? There is a bike rack that is permanently across the corner, right next to kind of the newspaper stands at the post office. And then there's also a seasonal bike rack right across the street in front of the Title I boxing. Dapper did recommend possibly replacing the planter box on the bump out. I don't know if you can scroll down maybe to the last page. And to me personally, I'm kind of like, that's too prime of a spot to put a bike rack, where sometimes right now, if you go by Smiley, there's a bike that's just been abandoned that's just sitting right there in their bike rack, and it's just too unsightly. And quite frankly, I walked around town last week, and there's no other bump out in the downtown corridor that actually has a bike rack. They're kind of off to the side. So if you keep scrolling down where you actually have the aerial views, yeah, so they were suggesting to replace that planter with a bike rack, and I just don't think that's visually appealing. We could put it to the south. The challenge is you have a bench there for a public bus stop, so maybe there's some space in the parkway to put it, or there's been also discussion, maybe do we put a single loop bike rack down in front of the restaurant along the sidewalk on Davis Street, since you have kind of a wide sidewalk. So I'm open to it. I just would like more clarity in terms of the number of the bikes that it can accommodate, and kind of discussing a location, because I just don't think the bump out is the ideal from a gateway perspective to downtown.
And can you address whether, I don't know if there's enough room on the sidewalks, but are outside tables envisioned as a part of the use here?
We are working through that plan and that consideration, yes.
And And what will be, that's not a zoning question, but I'm tempted to ask, what will be the fenestration, your glazing? Will it be the same? Will it be completely transparent? Will it be partially translucent? What do you think?
It'll be the way you see it now. I think that Marty can answer that as well, as far as, part of the energy. We're a very energetic concept. Right, so we don't want to hide what's going on in our coffee house. We want to engage the environment and engage community. So if you actually go to the floor plan, we've been very, very cautious and very, very conscientious about making sure that we create multiple ways to use the coffee house. We want to make sure that in the history of Phil's, people have come there for any number of reasons, one of which is the rise of work from home, and I just want a place to work for a few minutes. So there's a lot of places to work by yourself. There's places where you can work with others. There's places where you can just gather and have a community conversation. We also provide lounges, all of which we might try to make sure that we take full advantage of the daylighting in the windows. So we're not trying to blocking the windows. We want the energy to come in and come out of the store. So that fenestration should all be clear glazing, so you can see in and see out and get that daylighting into our coffee shop, as well as have that energy come out to the street front to make sure this is the kind of the gateway we want to have too.
Is this layout a little bit different from this one? Because this one shows sliding.
Yeah, so
windows.
if you go scroll on down, this is the latest plans that were submitted to the city and just actually approved last Friday.
Okay.
The front storefront on the top right corner shows the arrows, so I'm getting completely new windows, the whole building, new storefront on Davis and Oak.
Yeah.
La Cantina sliding windows that will open up, so you have the fixed panels.
Take the microphone.
Okay.
Hang on. Come on back.
Fixed?
Nope. Come on.
All right.
I'll help out.
Can I take any request songs? All right, so imagine this. This is fixed, and the center two slide open. So that will be on both sides, just on the Davis Street. So as Jim alluded to, kind of bringing that inside out and the outside in. And obviously we know air curtains will be involved as well.
Okay, thank you.
Helpful? You bet.
So Evanston has been the recipient of several new coffee shops, and we have a pretty vigorous coffee scene. And we've heard when other applications have been before the board of some concern as to whether, how deep the market for coffee shops can be here in Evanston. Now, I do on occasion work from my home, and so I am one of those people that are often looking for a place to, to work and be productive and hold meetings, et cetera. So I'm often looking for seats at coffee shops. But I'm curious to hear your perspective as you looked at the Evanston market and from the other operators in the market, what you see as it regards to that.
Want me to take this? Sure. So I think that I think it's a great question, and I think from our standpoint, as we've looked at how we've grown out of the Mission District in San Francisco, San Francisco's got a really big coffee market too. We go through a lot of competition, but I think we're also just a different take on coffee. I think that if you knew Phil or Jacob, their Middle Eastern background, if you look at our food offerings, are all Mediterranean based, right? So this is really about a community coffee shop, not necessarily a place to get something with a lot of milk in it. We don't do that, right? So you may say Starbucks, Peach, or any other people that are a coffee shop, they actually provide a lot of milk. We actually provide a lot of coffee. And so people who are really coffee enthusiasts tend to seek us out because we serve a very hearty, up to 15, 20 blends of different coffee, grounded in front of you, poured in front of you, and made to your taste. That's just a different product right now than a lot of coffee houses are offering or coffee shops are offering. So we tend to feel that you may feel that you have a lot of coffee. We think there's a lot of hot beverage and milk in the market. We think we're actually a really true coffee shop.
One additional question. We have a vigorous restaurant scene in that area, for which I'm grateful for. One hole that I see right in that corridor is desserts. I'm curious whether you'll have any sort of sweet items on your menu, or whether you would consider that as people are finishing meals in the surrounding restaurants. I think that might be a nice addition to the corridor.
we do. We carry cookies, cupcakes, vegan options, vegan breakfast options. So, as we've had a lot of requests in some of our markets to be open later. We have been developing as a young company kind of the 7 to 10 p.m. menu item. We're still working our way through it to see what sells and what doesn't sell, but we have had a lot of requests that, hey, after dinner I'll love a dessert, or hey, I got a late night study to get in, or I'm having a late business meeting. Can you guys stay open later and offer a bit something for the sweet tooth? And we're working through all of that.
And speaking of hours of operation, can you speak to that?
Yeah, our typical are 6 to 8, 6 to 9, as Mel said. In very rare instances, we'll go to 10 o'clock, but that's usually the request of the community,
Okay.
not necessarily something that we've gone out and seeked. Was that helpful? Oh, you bet.
Any other questions?
No, we're excited. Thank you very much.
you.
Great, thanks. You guys can have a seat. Is there anybody here from the community who'd like to talk about 1030 Davis? Seeing none, you guys can wrap up if you'd like, or end it there. You're going to stick. Okay. All right, with that, we will close the record and enter deliberations. So, thoughts on this?
Well, I'll dive in. I'm excited to see this corner activated.
I
I
agree.
think it sort of puts a cherry on top of what's been happening there. And so I'm excited to see this use come in. I personally believe that there's still room in the coffee market here in Evanston, just based on my own personal experience of trying to find tables at the area coffee shops during the day. So I'm excited for this project and look forward to it.
Excellent, thank you.
I agree with that, particularly with respect to the market. I don't think this is not a part of Evanston that's saturated with coffee shops. Aside from the fact that the product is different, I think that you'll find there's plenty of room at that corner for coffee patrons.
I would simply add that the experience of a company that has a successful prototype that they have implemented around the country is heartening, because I think that there's a very good chance, therefore, that they will succeed and be there for a long time. So I think it's a good use.
Thank you.
I like the project, and that corner needs to get developed, so I'm good.
Yeah, I would support the project. It's a good project. I would still recommend putting the bike rack. You have young people. They may come with a scooter even. You know this, so you have to take care of that, and you will be better off with this. So yes, for the project.
I have to agree with all the comments my colleagues have said. I also am grateful you're actually thinking about what that corner should look like, meaning not bikes on that corner. I think that's a really important part of our urban fabric, is what those corners look like, and having them full of bikes is not attractive. I do think I would like to condition this on getting a bike rack in. I know that's important to community development to get those bike racks in. And I think that they're looking at the elevations. It seems like there's an opportunity, in some green space south of the bus stop to be able to get a larger bike rack in. So I think that seems doable at this point. I would also wonder if we should extend their hours to 10 p.m. to sort of be the same as Taco Diablo and Lulu's and Five and Dime. I don't know how late all of them go to. I just know a couple. So I would be inclined to extend their hours to 10 p.m. Okay. With that, we have 9 special uses. 9 standards for special uses. The first one, it is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. It is. So that standard is met. Number 2, it's in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time to time. Again, the 2 of the primary goals of that comprehensive general plan is to promote growth and redevelopment and to strengthen our economic base. This is clearly a great opportunity for that, to further strengthen that base on that street and to redevelop that property from what it was to what it can be right now. So I think that standard has been met. Number 3, it will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types in the immediate neighborhood and the effect of the proposed type of special use upon the city as a whole. There aren't very many type 2s in that immediate neighborhood. Most of them are type 1s. And so I don't think that there will be a cumulative negative effect. So I think that that standard has been met. Number 4, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of the property in the neighborhood. This is the perfect business for that neighborhood, and it will fit in well with what else is going on in that neighborhood. Furthermore, a full property, a non-vacant property, is a good property. So I believe that that standard has been met. Number 5, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. There's clearly bus transportation nearby. There is some public parking. There is the CTA, so we've got a lot of ways to get there and be served by public facilities and services. So that standard has certainly been met. Number 6, it does not cause undue traffic congestion. We're in the middle of one of the downtown corridors where we expect some traffic congestion given the amount of retail we've got in the area. So I don't think that this is going to cause undue. It certainly will have a little bit more, but I don't consider it to be undue. So that standard has been met. Number 7, it preserves significant historical and architectural resources. At long last, we have a pretty building. And so actually bringing this building back to life with some newer windows and enlivening the facade is going to be just fantastic. So I think that that standard has been met. Number 8, it preserves significant natural and environmental features, which does not apply. And number 9, it complies with all other applicable regulations of the district and which is located in other applicable ordinances, which it will once it gets its business license. So with that, can I have a motion, please?
I move in the matter of ZBA 18 ZMJV-0104 regarding the application for 1030 Davis Street that we recommend to City Council to approve the special use requested subject to the following conditions. 1, that the hours of operation be limited from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. 2, that employees of the business be restricted from parking at the metered parking and park elsewhere. And 3, that the applicant comply with the city's litter collection and removal plans, and 4, that the property otherwise be developed and run in accordance with the testimony and documents submitted.
Can I add a friendly amendment about the bike racks?
Maybe. Oh, yes. And 5, that the applicant and or the owner be required as part of the project to install a bike rack at an appropriate location, not on the corner.
Excellent.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And with that, you go to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Good luck with your project. All right, moving on to 524 Main. Will you please read that into the record, please?
Jeremy Hall, potential lessee, applies for a special use permit for a ground floor medical office, North Shore University Health System, in the C1A Commercial Mixed Use District and the ODM Dempster Main Overlay District, zoning code section 615-17-5, and for major zoning relief for parking. The applicant requests an increase of 0 parking spaces where an increase of 7 parking spaces is required for a medical office, and where a parking reduction for a total of 152 spaces, including 25 off-site, was granted by Plan Development Ordinance 32014. Zoning Code Section 616.35, Table 16B. The Zoning Board of Appeals makes a recommendation to City Council, the determining body for this case. Documents included as part of the record include special use application submitted December 3rd, 2018, major variation application submitted December 21st, 2018, operations summary submitted to DAPR January 9th, 2019, plat of survey, site plans and elevations, Plan Development Ordinance 32014, zoning map of property, aerial view of property, image of property, and DAPR draft meeting minutes excerpt of January 9th, 2019, as well as one letter of concern that was passed out at the beginning of the meeting.
Before we get into that, I have a question for staff, which is when the property was approved as a plan development, what was the plan for the first floor space? It was retail, yeah?
The first floor was intended for retail and the second floor for office.
Office space, right.
On that point, if I can clarify, ask of staff, as I understood from the application documents, the developer thought that the use as specified by this emergency clinic was covered under the PD. Was there a misunderstanding as to whether that was an allowable use with the original PD?
I will let the applicant speak to that, but my understanding is not that it was covered under the plan development, but that it was permitted as of right. In the district.
So was the plan development approved before the dumpster main overlay district was implemented?
Yes.
I think that might be where the confusion came in.
Okay.
Okay.
We're ready. Tell us about your project, please.
Good evening. I'm Kent Swanson. I'm a longtime Evanston resident and representing Riverside Investment and Development, the developer of the project. And I'm here with North Shore University Health System to discuss the special use permit for their and the zoning request, variance request for the proposed immediate care facility.
So sorry, just to be clear, as the developer of the project, you're talking about the developer of the whole building, right?
Of the entire building.
Of the entire building.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So
Thanks.
we all 9 stories, the 3
Right.
different uses, the residential in the top 7 stories, office on the 2nd floor, and retail on the 1st floor. Parking below grade. And I'm also here with John Zakara with IFS, who handles the construction for the North Shore system, who will discuss some of the other factors in the project, and then Tyler Bauer from North Shore, who is available to discuss any medical and operational uses on the project. So I think we have the whole team here. The property, as you know, is at 524 Main Street, the hard corner of that project, and it is about 3,200 square foot site. So, as you described, the property is part of a PUD, and with the dumpster main overlay and some of the concerns with that, and I think we also had our Athletico project that did not require this permit. It's a different use, but we did not initially think that we needed to get the approval, but now we're here and we know we have to get it, and so we're here to do so. The medical use does require some additional parking, but I just wanted to give a little summary of what we have in terms of the lease and parking availability in the building in terms of actual use. So our apartments are ranging about 90 to 96% leased, depending on the month that we're in right now. So they're pretty much fully leased and occupied. Our office is 100% leased, and then the retail, we still have 2 vacant spaces. We're building out. We have a lease with North Shore, and then we have one space left. Generally, we have the residential parking is at the below grade. We have 30 spaces that are servicing the retail. With the office uses that we have, there's no real parking impact to them. The staff does not park in those for the school that is on the 2nd floor, and the smaller tenant that's on the office tenants on the 2nd floor does not use that space either. So we've allocated 8 spaces for the North Shore operation, and then we've allocated 3 spaces in our parking lot that is adjacent to Hemingway Church for employee parking, to keep the employee long-term parking out of kind of the retail cycle, that cycles in and out within those 30 spaces. We've also worked with staff to kind of improve some of the circulation in the parking lot, to remove some of the barriers that were initially put in accordance with zoning, to make the parking lot more functional and useful. The spaces were a little bit narrow with some of the protective elements that we had around the girders and structural system in the parking lot, so it makes it a little more flexible now with cleaning that stuff up.
Sorry, just to make sure I heard you correctly, the 8 plus 3 parking spaces are all intended for employee parking, and then...
No, 8 intended for patient parking in the space, and 3 for employee parking. There's 3 employees at any given time. Obviously, the operational hours, and we'll go over that a little later, but at any given time, there's generally 3 employees at the facility, so that they're fully covered in the separate employee parking lot. So actually, that's kind of what I wanted to just clarify. Any other questions on the parking? Because I can clarify that. Then otherwise, I'd like to turn it over to John and
Oh, I'm sorry. I did have one additional question, Mr. Swanson, is as it relates to the final vacant space, if there's an intended use for that space as of yet.
We're in, lease discussions, but I am not in lease with anyone yet. We are looking and working hard to get a food use there. And maybe since you're kind of asking about, other, efforts that we've had on marketing the space, just to clarify a few things there, we have we've probably reached out and spoken with 450 to 500 leads to try to get tenants in this space and in that corner space. It is a challenging retail environment to secure new tenants and operations, and so we've been very diligent in that effort. And the building opened in October of 2016. We did have an existing, lease that we had pre-leased. Unfortunately, that group disbanded and were not willing to go forward with their lease, so that we were not able to open that store. They still operate a couple of stores that are remaining, but they were opening no new operations, so that's why that store did not open. So we've really worked hard to try to get a new tenant, and we think this is a very positive use for the community, bringing these kind of services that will relieve tension on the using emergency facilities at St. Francis, and I think it's going to be a significant positive benefit for the community. But I can turn that over to John to talk a little bit more about the operation in the space, and as well as Tyler.
So, John, are you going to address how we get in and out of the parking?
Yes, I can.
Great.
I will. I just want to hand out one item,
Sure, bring
which
it up.
has to do with the windows along that elevation.
Great. We're going to mark that applicant's 1.
Thank you.
Tell me you've made them pretty.
My name is John Zahara. I'm with Integrated Facilities Solutions. We are the owner's representative or project manager for North Shore University Health System. We're located in Skokie at 5270 Lincoln Avenue. And I just want to talk to you about the benefits of this clinic in the community. North Shore has had a long-standing relationship with Evanston, the city of Evanston. This will be a clinic basically for walk-in care. There will not be any emergency vehicles reporting to this location. We'll have 3 exam rooms, 1 x-ray room, and some support services associated with that in about 3,200 square feet of space. Really, the benefit is this is a much lower cost option than an ER. So if you're looking for if you have different types of acuity, you would go to visit this site and walk into this site rather than go to an emergency room or go to your normal doctor's office. The hours of operation we're looking at are 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and then 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Friday through Sunday. We're staffed with...
Where's the next nearest, what are we calling this thing?
Immediate care?
Yeah, immediate care, yeah.
There are no immediate care locations within this zip code.
For either hospital
or any
brand.
There's one on
brand.
Maple.
I don't know how
Maple
far
and
away that is.
Church.
The closest one is that.
You got to jump up.
Sorry, there's one on Maple and Church.
Correct.
Maple
It's
and
the
Church?
Northwestern has a immediate care operation across the street from the theaters at Maple
Oh,
and
right.
Church. But the 60202 zip code has
Right.
no immediate care facility.
Okay.
Approximately 2,100 patients from this zip code now go to a North Shore facility, which is located in Skokie. So the idea would be bring this care closer to them and also keep them out of the emergency department. Again, much lower cost option for the patients in the surrounding area. We're looking at 3 employees would manage that office daily, and that they would be using that parking located at the 935 location. As far as patients that would park in this facility, if they park in that parking garage, there is an exit door that they will walk out of. That is on Is that on Chicago?
It's on Chicago Avenue.
Chicago Avenue. And it's located on that set of plans that I gave you on that first page photograph elevation. You'll see that right adjacent, just to the south side of the parking garage door or overhead door, there's a door for pedestrians.
Right.
They would walk out that door, walk down Chicago, and our entrance would be right on Main Street.
Okay. I think the main concern is how are they getting back to the garage?
That door will be open during the operation time of the facility.
Oh, you managed to negotiate that? Because it sounded like that was dicey.
We didn't. We had to look at the technical capabilities of that system. But
Okay.
that's controlled in the same manner as our garage door that's in the back and alley access.
Right.
So that can be set to whatever timer we set it to. So it can be operating from 8 to 9, and then we lock it so that it's a secure area at night.
Okay, so people can get back to their cars via that same route. They can walk down Chicago Avenue, go back through those two doors, and get in.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
We went through that after the DAPR hearing
Great.
and got that clarified.
Good resolution.
Are there any questions on just the overall use of the space? The other thing we wanted,
How about the loading dock?
Oh, well, so one of the things we talked about with DAPR was really the idea of how our materials can be brought to the site. They're usually brought from Evanston Hospital to the site in a van, Sprinter van type vehicle. There's no box trucks or anything, big, large deliveries like that outside of what we would do for construction purposes. And all those items will be brought in through the loading dock area. There's a back corridor access that would be brought in through the back corridor into the space. It's not a patient access point because we want everyone coming through the front door for that one on Main Street, but all the deliveries will be brought in through that back entrance.
And how often are those deliveries coming?
I would say at the most a couple times a week.
Okay.
And can you talk about, this is obviously, it's not like a restaurant like the first two special uses we talked about. How is medical waste disposed of from the site?
So there is a same style of truck would come and pick up waste from the site. We have an area that waste would be stored in the facility until it's brought in. They would come directly into the facility to pick that up, and it's managed that way. So
How often?
How often? Same time, a couple times a week. Yeah.
And where in your plan is that being stored? Is that soiled utility?
Yes, soiled utility. That's correct.
So they're just bags of
Medical waste,
Right.
like
red bags, yeah.
red bag waste. There's traditional trash, paper trash, things like that.
Okay.
Can you speak to the window treatments along Chicago Avenue and the call for window graphics to be installed? I understand that those are the treatment rooms, so there's need for privacy. But can you help us understand a little bit more about those window treatments and why those are necessary, and if something else has been considered to keep those windows open to the street?
So we've looked at different layouts of the site and the way that the modules work with the exam rooms. Really, this location was the only spot for the exam rooms. And so to look at patient care in that space, we would like to keep that private, obviously. We do have a window treatment, like a curtain, a blind that would be there. But we also are looking at some kind of window graphics to be on that window to allow natural light into the space up above the transom area and bring natural light into the exam room and still keep that private to the outside. The graphics that we're talking about on the window, we would go through all the normal permitting process for signage with the city. But we're looking at some kind of mural product that would promote the idea of health and wellness. It would not be a advertisement for North Shore. So we like the idea of that community aspect, and we want to make sure that we advertise, not just advertise North Shore. We're not doing that. We would put on murals that would look at health and wellness and the promotion of that.
I wonder if there might be some consideration, if that's in fact how the treatment of the windows go, if there might be some consideration of connecting those murals or whatever messaging that's on there with the businesses in the main Dempster Street area, so that you could work with the business association to somehow connect with the businesses in the corridor and encouraging people, letting them know of what other businesses are in the corridor.
Sure. Yeah, one of the concepts we talked about was finding local artists that could work on this graphic, and we would work with our marketing team as well to make sure that it is appropriate.
Just to add one thing, we did look at the graphics that are on, there's a art school that's at, I think it's Maple and Davis, or perhaps Oak. It's right
One
in that.
River.
And yeah, One River, correct. And so that kind of style of an item that is non-commercial, attractive and interesting, and kind of at that, not the entire window, but kind of a 3/4 height to provide the privacy, but to provide some visual interest would be kind of the effect that we're looking for for this application.
I'm glad to hear you're including natural light, because as a patient, I don't want to be in a dark room. Nothing worse than that.
And just in case that you have an emergency inside, imagine somebody comes for exam and it turns into an emergency. How will you get the stretcher in and out? And where will the ambulance be?
You want to answer that, Tyler?
So, Tyler Bauer, representing North Shore University Health System, 1301 Central in Evanston. So if we would have a medical emergency, we would call 911. Of course, we'd provide appropriate treatment as we can at that location, and would leave it up to the fire department and the paramedics to determine which is the quickest point of access for them, which I would imagine would be through the front door.
Yeah, I asked because it's, once again, it's semi-zoning, semi-planning, but your front doors are not best located for stretcher to pass through.
That's true. Although, like whatever business you put in an office might have to call 911 and have the same problem.
Yeah, true. This is because this is medical. That's why I asked this question.
How often, on average, how often are you guys calling 911 from immediate care? You guys have to have those stats.
So I don't have them off the top of my head, but it's not a regular occurrence. We've had
Is
immediate...
it 10 times a week or 100?
Oh, it's 10 if I had to choose between the two for sure.
Right.
Much less than that, likely.
Okay.
Patients understand what immediate care is or urgent care is and are typically not coming in with conditions where they need to be called. Paramedics need to be called.
The letter that was distributed to us this evening talks about traffic in the area and people that are dropped off, and I'm trying to recall, is there any pedestrian drop zone, curb area there where it allows people to be dropped off for the Athletico in this proposed use?
It's actually, metered parking for the entire length of the Main Street area. In front of, on the Chicago Avenue side, there is more of a, there's no parking there. It's not a bus stop. The bus stop is on the other side of Main Street, on the north side of Main Street in that corner. But generally, it's a no parking area. So theoretically, if someone dropped someone off and drove off, that would be the most likely spot to drop someone off. But the parking lot is also quite close. I mean, it's not like that's that far away, and someone could be dropped in there and walk down if that's another possibility.
What's the average duration for a patient treatment?
Sure. So probably the visits typically range from 15 to 20, 25 minutes.
I mean, like from the time they show up in the waiting room till the time they're seen and are discharged.
So if we have availability to take the patient back immediately, it's a quick check-in, maybe three minutes or so at the front desk, and then they're taken back, vital signed, and then the provider would see them.
So I think, to me, it seems like the parking concern expressed in the letter is, okay, you've got 8 designated spaces for patients, but people are just going to pull up to a meter and pay for an hour of parking in a meter if they know it's going to be a 15-minute stop, and not necessarily utilize the garage parking.
But actually, the garage parking is free. So
I understand, right? Like,
it's immediately there and it's climate controlled. So
yeah, I get that. I think the concern is we've got metered parking. I'm pulling up for urgent care. I'm not gonna, unless somebody knows there's parking in the garage for them, then they're just going to try to pull into one of the metered spots, and that's the concern of the neighborhood is. So how will you promote the fact that there's patient parking available indoors in the garage?
Free and climate controlled.
Yeah, so I think that's a great point, and I think that would be something that we would need to do through our marketing and on our website so that patients are aware of how to get to the location and where they can find parking. We've certainly done that at some of our other locations throughout our system as well.
You know, to Scott's point, it took me probably 2 years to realize that there was free parking at Hoosier Mama in Dollop. And I paid for metered parking for many times until I realized that there was free parking there. So I do think that's a consideration here.
And the city thanks you. So I got a question for you, though, is drop-offs. Have you guys considered signage that say no patient drop-offs? Like, let's discourage bad behavior before it starts?
I haven't considered that, but certainly if that's the recommendation, that's something that we could look at.
I think that in the Dapper notes, they specifically said that they would not be able to provide a patient drop-off location.
Right.
But I think that, you know, having been in that neighborhood for so long, that there are several times that cars pull over quickly, stop, and drop off because they're dropping people off for the L and the Metro.
Right.
And so I think that it's a natural occurrence in that location that people just pull up to drop a passenger off without having to have a passenger drop off. I would further submit that any retail use that would be at that location would, you know, their clients would come, and some of them are going to use the metered parking, and some of them will use the garage parking when they know it's there. So it's just another use. The other thing about this particular urgent care is there's such a high density of people in that neighborhood. I think you will be getting a lot of your clients from the immediate area. And so walk in, walk to, and walk in is probably likely in many cases.
And I'm not sure, did you address this early on? How full is your parking lot from your residential use? Like
So
what percent?
The downstairs parking is pretty much full.
Okay.
Our exterior parking is about a third used right now, something in that.
Meaning the off-site stuff.
The off-site parking.
Okay.
And then generally the retail parking area, the 30 spaces, it's pretty lightly used right now.
Because nobody knows about
it. You might say that there's nobody knows, but the bank and the Athletico are not generating, it is by no means a full garage. It's at least maybe a third full at any given time.
And how long's the bank been open?
They were open from the beginning.
Okay.
Athletico's been
Since
open
2016?
Well, probably. I think they moved in either November or December, maybe in January.
Okay.
They were part of the initial.
God, time
lease.
flies.
It does.
And how long has Athletico been there?
They're now about 9 months, I'd say.
Okay.
I mean, just looking at the plan, I don't know if you've ever been to any of like these immediate care places, but like there are 3 exam rooms, right? It's not a large.
Oh, it's not a big one.
Care facility.
Yeah.
So the economics of what it is.
Yeah.
Means 8 spaces of designated parking and whatever spill over the 30 retail spaces offers is probably plenty.
No, I agree with that. I was just curious more from, people complain about parking in these TOD districts, and I just wanted to know what your data was.
Well, I think that, we actually are due to send data to the city on our 3rd anniversary because we have certain other parking restrictions to look at based on actual results, which we'll be doing, come August, September of this year.
Right.
And we actually are not really utilized. We have some car lifts in our residential area, which we plan to not to decommission.
Right. Crazy. Okay. Any other questions from anyone? All right. Thank you very much. Is there anybody here who'd like to come on up? Give us your name and address. Tell us your concerns.
Hi, my name is Jason Mutz. I'm the president of the 811 Henman Condo Association. Longtime resident of Evanston, loved it so much that we went from being renters to buyers, and that's why we are now in between Main and Kedzie on Hinman Avenue. So we are right in this neighborhood.
Yep.
I'm a huge proponent of quality healthcare. I'm a huge proponent of North Shore as a system. I think it's a great system. I work in healthcare myself, as does my wife. Horrible area to put this for this clinic, and even worse for having a request for no additional parking, as has been discussed. As things stand right now, with that clinic not being open, with all of this parking that they say is already available, the parking in the neighborhood is very, very, very tight. As I'm sure, being the zoning commission that you are aware that it's a ton of apartment buildings, condominium buildings, all that sort of thing. High concentration of people. You've got, for every building there, you've got probably at least 6 or 7 cars. And so all of that adds up to high congestion of parking. The Main Street shops right there on the block that this clinic would be open on are generally foot traffic shops. So they're not really the type of magnet that this would be for the entire area. They mentioned that the only other immediate care in the area is way over here by the movie theater on Maple. So there's going to be a lot of people being drawn into this immediate care, because the only other immediate care I can even think of is the one out in Woods Drive where I have had to go to. And so it's kind of a recipe for making life a heck of a lot more difficult for everybody living in the area. I mean, if you want to couple that situation with the fact that the public lot that's right by my building has been consistently raising the prices to get a permit to park in there, and effectively in the 5 years that I've lived there has nearly doubled the cost to park there, you're giving us no options. You're saying, you're pricing us out of the public lot, you're taking away public parking spots. I mean, where are we supposed to go?
I have a question for you as a neighbor. The letter that we received this evening talked about people that use public transit and park on the nearby residential streets. Is that area not zoned in a way that's going to discourage or disallow those that are taking transit to park on those streets during the day?
We have, that's something actually my wife, who's watching on the stream, brought up. There is no permit parking in that area, which she said that I should be asking for at a bare minimum in this hearing, but I figured that this hearing is probably not the one, and you probably say go talk to your alderman. I don't know, but
That is the right answer.
That is an
It's okay,
issue for
Ted. Next time.
That is an issue for the parking department, but most of the streets, I know that on Madison, which is our block, and most of the streets right there have prohibited parking from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And that's how they try to discourage the commuters from parking up the streets. But it is limitedly successful, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
So that's why they have converted a number of the parking spaces on the blocks between Custer and Chicago Avenue as 12-hour parking, because, why fight it? You might as well just make them pay for it.
I mean, I guess what I'm asking for you all to consider is coming home from a long day at work and then having to circle your block 15 times trying to find a place to park.
So I totally agree with you, just for the record, and I avoid, to be honest, coming to some of the businesses in your neighborhood because parking is so difficult in your neighborhood. It really is. However, they've addressed, and I don't know if you've had an opportunity to consider, the designated indoor retail parking that services the building seems, given the anticipated number of patients that they plan to serve, which their materials say they expect maybe 22 a day. So they have 8 designated indoor parking spaces intended to serve 22 patients in a day, which to me, on its face, seems like it's most likely adequate without compromising the street parking, which is what you're talking about.
So a couple things on that, and you do bring up a great point. First of all, it's a urgent care, again, that's going to be a magnet for a large area. It's kind of in an island of itself. The idea that there's not going to be a wait in the waiting room and it's not going to be very busy is, I think, a naive one, to be honest.
The economics of the space, though, are there are 3 exam rooms, and if their plan is for 22 patients a day.
Well, I was going to get to that point as well. Secondly, it kind of touches upon your concerns before about nobody knowing that is really there. The developer has not made any effort thus far to publicize or make known that parking is there. I think that a lot of people that are going to be patients for or attending to patients for an immediate care are not going to take the time to look on the website to find out where to park or necessarily be paying that much attention. As much as and I could be coming from a place of being extraordinarily defensive because, like I said, as it stands right now, even before this opens, with the parking that is supposedly there already, it's horrible.
You are coming from a place that's defensive, and it's justified. 'Cause your neighborhood is awful to park in, but the same as to the same point you're making, somebody who's coming from urgent care, yes, they're not going to have time to be looking on the website. They're also not going to drive around your neighborhood looking for a metered parking when there's a free retail space available. So I feel like if there's marketing, if there's signage that indicates
signage that says free,
that patient parking is this way,
yep.
I really do think that any parking effect on the neighborhood, given this type of business and given the type of traffic, likely won't be very incremental.
So is there any way to, I heard you guys approve with amendments and all this sort of thing. Is there any way to, after a certain amount of time, do some sort of study to see what the impact on the street parking has been after they've, opened or something like that? Because if we're just talking about rubber stamping something and then, they put up some signage and nothing really improves and actually it, downgrades or degrades the situation in my neighborhood, that's even more horrible. So is there any way to kind of put some teeth to something and make sure that they're held accountable?
Sorry, we're just talking.
No, it's okay.
Because it seems like I feel like we've had that request before on some things where parking has the potential to be problematic, is that zoning generally sort of monitors it, and they monitor it based on complaints that come through and that sort of a thing, and then it gets addressed sort of informally later down the road. We're just trying to think if there is any way to codify that, sort of like the planned unit development, right? You guys are having to justify your parking 3 years later and come up with those numbers. So I think one of the potentials here is to let staff think about that and see if there is something that makes sense, and let staff sort of try and guide that on what can and can't be done. Staff meaning her.
Got it.
I would suggest to you also that the path that most people take, if there is something that happens in their neighborhood that degrades livability even further, is they address it with their alderman.
Yeah.
And because the alderman will go to staff and to the parking department and to this developer and say, we have to come up with a better plan.
And it could be, quite honestly, that once you get transit parking out of your neighborhood, you might find that life is better.
Well, another huge kind of just horrible situation was when they were constructing that building and then the other Amley building, all the construction crews were parking in our neighborhood as well. And it's like...
That happens everywhere in the city, though, right? You build a new house, you have somebody renovate their house right next to mine, I got the same deal.
Doesn't make it any easier.
It doesn't, but we all empathize and we've all gone through it. It's just part of, but luckily it's built now, and
sure.
They shouldn't be there. But anyway, please know we obviously listen, we care, we are concerned, and we try to address these things as best we can. However, some of those parking issues are best handled through your alderman and expressing to them about perhaps a permit parking for your neighborhood. That might be your best course of action to actually get real change.
All right.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Come on up. You've waited 2.5 hours.
My name is Yun Park. I own a business in the Main Merchant Dempster Mile Association. I'm on the board as well.
What address?
Soapy's 1231 Chicago Avenue, and I'm also a resident of Evanston. So I wasn't going to speak, but I understand and I sympathize with you, but I have to tell you, I have parked multiple times in that building. There's always parking. I don't know why people don't understand there's parking there, but there is, and it's always open. Now, as far as Dollop, you can't park in that space, so that's why people don't park. It's not that there's availability. And as far as east of Chicago Avenue on Hinman, there's never parking. So if you go to like Brother K, like I don't go because there's no parking. So I do sympathize with you, but part of real estate is, you know, buildings like the Main and Amley come in, it's going to bring up your prices. So it's part of the equation. So, you know, as a merchant and being part of the board, we don't want vacancies as well. You know, and whatever goes in, it's going to take up parking space. I know there was a talk of a grocery going in. That would have just taken away all your parking space. So it's perspective, I guess, but just to defend them, there's always parking in that lot. So people don't know about it. That's the problem, but I always park at the bank, personally. But
good tip.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a question, if I may, before you leave. Last month, we had, I guess it was considered a medical office use on Main Street for chiropractic use. Right. And we had several merchants on Main Street coming and talking both in favor and against. I don't know whether, you know, if you're speaking for Main Dempster Street Mile, if there's been any I don't know if there's been any. I'm frankly surprised that we don't have more.
I am not speaking for them.
Okay.
She will, though.
She will. She wasn't going to, but.
Sorry. Ms. Gotzik, I thought perhaps you might.
Hi. Yes, I'm Catherine Gotzik. Yep. I'm the executive director of the Main Dempster Mile. And there are a range of opinions on this particular use. There are some who are very supportive. There are some who are very concerned. There's a lot of talk about parking. There's plenty who would rather have it empty or would rather have it full than empty, no matter what is in it. But there are a range of opinions. So we have taken the position where we will neither support nor oppose it.
Thank you. Hey, wait, let me just make sure everybody's done commenting. Any other comments? Anybody else? All right, now it's your turn to rebut. Answer, respond any way you'd like.
We did reach out, you know, to the community and talk to a number of the merchants. In particular, I spoke with Sean Good, who was one of the more concerned members of the Merchants Association looking at that chiropractic office, and he was very comfortable feeling that with the project. He didn't really care, so he's not here to support or go against or in favor, kind of viewing that the other side of Main Street is sort of a different environment and has kind of a different feel, and the hard corner it's a more busy corner in terms of the vehicular traffic, and he just felt that it was an appropriate use and was not concerned about it from his standpoint. I do have a couple of letters from other merchants on the Main and Dempster Mile, which I've got a few copies.
We're going to mark those as applicants too.
So those letters are from the Brothers K and from Manazzi and Rugg, long, standing Evanston businesses that I'm sure you're all familiar with.
I have a question. Given that your existing tenants include the bank, Athletico, and now this proposed use, if I understood what you said earlier, that for the remaining vacant space, you are speaking with a retail use of, it sounds like, a food and beverage type use. Would you be comfortable if support of this special use at the corner includes, I don't know, how far along are conversations on that remaining vacant space, I guess is what I'm asking.
You know, we've had exchanges of, term sheets, but I don't have I'm not a signed term sheet and I'm not in lease. So people have to finalize their capitalization of their share of the costs. So I can't promise that those are, viable operations. And with all due respect, I'd really prefer to not have a restriction placed on the remaining space. I'd like to have this, pass on its own merits, which I think are very strong. And so I'd prefer to go in that direction, please.
Can you just clarify, we were talking between us earlier, and I think, at least I don't remember hearing either one of us ask, of the 8 spaces you're designated for patient parking, do those come out of the 30 retail spaces, or are they in addition to?
They come out of the 30, so they will actually be marked with signage for, we'll say North Shore patient parking only. We have that for Athletico now, so there's a number of designated spaces for them. Be a similar situation for the North Shore facility.
Can I ask you how you regulate that? Do you have a towing agreement with a company, or is there any way for you to...
It's not a perfect regulation system. We don't have a ticketing system. You don't have to go through a gate to go in the garage.
Right.
We do have, our building staff is there during the day, building engineer. If they observe people going from the parking lot directly to another merchant's business and not into ours, we might talk to that person and or tow their vehicle. If someone's there overnight or something like that, that vehicle would be towed. So we can do a limited amount of enforcement, but it's not a perfect system.
Do you have cameras in your parking?
We do have security cameras in there, so we can observe some of those things to confirm that that a towing might be warranted.
Thank you.
I have a question for North Shore. So sometimes, I don't know necessarily with immediate care or even with you guys, but sometimes when you go for services like this, there's some sort of post-visit survey, how did we do kind of thing. Do you guys do anything like that?
We certainly do.
Would it be possible to add to those surveys questions about where people parked?
I would have to take a look at that. We use the same survey for all of our immediate care locations, so adding a question specific to that site we might not be able to do, but we could certainly look into it. And
it might be nice to gauge that for you as well, because if 8 designated spaces aren't serving your patrons and you're losing out on like when I say the economics are going to dictate it, it's a limited space, and if people can't park and have to wait forever to get in, they're just not going to go to that location. They're going to go to Maple or wherever else is a larger facility. Even though it may be close, they're going to realize, well, I can't get parking there and I have to wait for too long, so I'd rather just go a little further.
So we have from experience at our other locations, not necessarily immediate care, but some of our offices as well. The survey has the ability for some free text or free narrative for patients to do. And let me tell you, they will tell us exactly what they're concerned with, whether it's parking, whether it's the temperature in the building, even if that wasn't specifically asked. So I'm certain that either we would get that through the survey, or actually, I can almost guarantee you that if there is an issue with a patient not being able to park and we're saying you could park there, they will be coming into us and letting us know so we could address it from that point.
You might even look into an open-ended question that just asks, for all your facilities, did you find parking adequate? Did you find parking difficult? Without asking where you parked, then that way I think you could intuit that if somebody found parking difficult at this location, they probably didn't use the free parking inside.
Right.
I think this is a signage problem, and I think you can address it with good signage. I think if you point out where the parking is, and it's patient parking and it's free patient parking, I think you've solved all of your problems.
Well, there is a, obviously you have to abide by the signage rules within
Sure.
the city too. So we do have a directional sign for parking it's a blade on Main that points toward the entrance down the alley. And then there's retail garage entrance signage at both the alley side and then on the Chicago Avenue side. So it also directs you for because there's little logos of the businesses on top of the Chicago Avenue side that direct people to go around for parking. So that
Yeah, but to your point and to the point of the other neighbors, nobody knows about the parking, so the sign's not working. And for purposes of this business, the idea would be to direct patients that this is where you go.
And hopefully they'll be able to do that when they, using their material and their advertising material. I'm sure that will help if they put those things in there. And
I'm not sure advertising material is enough. I think you got to put it on the building, and I'm fairly certain that the signed commission, is that what it's called? If we talk about it solving a parking problem, I think that they hopefully understand the gravity of the situation, and that some leniency here might be in order.
Well, to your point, Mary Beth, if I'm an urgent care patient, I'm not sure that I would recognize something that says retail parking. I don't know that I would know that is where I'm allowed to park as a patient of the urgent care clinic, because I wouldn't recognize myself as a retail patron.
I'm looking
So
for
it might
your
just
logo, and I'm looking for your
it
initials.
just might be retail and patient parking or something, so that when I'm coming to North Shore, because I have a medical issue, I clearly understand, like, there's parking here and it's intended for me. And I do think that there could be some small changes made to address some of these parking concerns.
I think some of the signage on Chicago Avenue is intended to do that. So, but we can work on that, with the signage group and within your requirements, and hopefully address the situation.
Was there anything else that neighbors brought up that you'd like to address? I think the primary issue is parking, but aside from that? Okay. Is there anything, so this is your opportunity. Feel free to wrap up if you'd like. Do a summary, revisit anything you'd like, or you can say you've said enough and we can close the record. Your choice.
Yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
So okay.
We close the record and
Great. Thank you very much. We will close the record and deliberate at this time. Thoughts?
Yeah. So, I'll just kind of get out my thinking. Obviously, the parking is a huge issue for the neighborhood, and also for this particular special use, which requires parking. That said, it is a small urgent care facility. I think the one on Maple has double or more the number of exam rooms.
Really?
And so this is a small facility. 3 employees is very few employees, and they are designating 3 spots for the employees. On an anticipated visit basis of 22 per day, it just seems to me that 8 designated patient parking spaces is plenty. I do think it would be nice if North Shore can try to monitor that in some way. And obviously, if the number of patients seen is significantly more than 22 per day, 8 spaces may not be enough, and you may need to work with the building or elsewhere to try to come up with a solution to accommodate your patients that doesn't involve them driving around the block interminably looking for parking. I think, as I said, the economics of that will work itself out. Patients aren't going to want to do that, and so people will adjust. Either you'll see fewer patients or you'll find more accommodation. So I think the parking can be adequate. I do think it's very necessary as a condition for a recommendation of approval that we require the building to apply for parking signage that clearly designates that patient parking for North Shore's clinic is, in that quote unquote retail parking space. And I think that will also help alleviate the problem. But I think there can be a great need for this business in this area, and it is an underserved community from that standpoint. And I've gone to urgent care, and I do think it's a great lower cost alternative, and with the right conditions, I'm very much in favor of the project.
Thank you. Anybody else? No, you just want to say you agree? Yes. Okay. Lisa?
I agree with Scott's comments. It occurs to me, is there parking for the urgent care on Maple across from the movie theater? Is that all?
It's all in the Maple Avenue parking garage.
Oh, right, the Maple Avenue parking garage. Okay. I appreciate, as was presented by Mr. Swanson and what was in the materials, the level of effort that has gone into leasing the space. Clearly, there was a Plan A when the building originally opened that fell through, and the retail environment is such that. Other uses are being considered for ground floor spaces, and the space has been vacant for, I think, 2 years or since the building opened. So just from the type of use, I think it is something that, can support the overall area and does fill a need. I hope that the remaining vacant space, I hope that a retail use of some sort can be found for that space. I think that would further support the corridor and, broaden the mix of uses for that ground floor space at that development. But I support the project.
Thank you. How about this side?
I'm in favor of the project. Actually, if I would have known that we actually had in Evanston an urgent care facility on Maple, I wouldn't have gone all the way to Western and Peterson when I had my blood clot. So I'm in favor of the project. I do have concerns about the parking, and signage, I think, would alleviate that. But otherwise, any other, when you're going to an urgent care facility, you are not looking to find the free parking.
I am.
No, you're not. Somebody's going to drop you off. If you're not going to the emergency room, somebody will drop you off and find parking wherever they can. That is human nature. So I think if you promote with the neighborhood that you're going into the free parking for the facility, I think that would help, because a lot of the people that are going to be going there will be either as an emergency. Obviously, it's an urgent care. It's not a walk-in clinic. It's a little bit more than that.
No, it's called urgent care, but it's a walk-in clinic.
It is a walk-in clinic, but it's not a walk-in clinic because the North Shore that is on Maple and Church is a walk-in clinic, but you have a certain time. You can't have walk-in patients beyond a certain time frame.
No. There's the clinic that's on Maple and Church is the same business model as this. It's like intended for walk-in.
I go there, and walk-in patients are from 8 in the morning till 9 in the morning. That's it.
I was there yesterday. Literally, I walked in yesterday.
On Saturday?
I walked in last Saturday as well. I had a sinus infection. It's intended for that, and the sign out front says walk-in patients. And you may be thinking of a different facility.
No, Maple and Church, right on the corner.
I think you're thinking of the one at 1000 Church Street.
Correct.
In the Shan Morahan building. That's different from the urgent care at Maple.
This is the one by the.
Yeah, that's a regular North Shore University health system.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This is a walk-in, and so is that one.
But the one on Church is, there is a certain time frame you can go. That's it.
That's right.
So.
Seems like some more advertising opportunities for you. To clarify what's where. No, it's okay. We're closed. Thank you.
I don't want to repeat what was said.
Yep.
I think that it's, in my opinion, after listening to all the concerns, mainly parking, I think if, let's say, a different line of thoughts, it's a good balance, because if we have something else there, maybe we'll have a bigger trouble with parking. So a healthcare facility that has designated parking, I believe it will be used if it has a better signage system. Once again, that's absolutely mandatory. You have to have the signage system that is clear, that somebody has to go there and use it. So it's a good balance. And you expressed your concerns of not finding a retailer that will take this place. I would agree, although I was thinking that a good retail is better over there for livelier and lovely street. But at the end of the day, with all the concerns and all the things that were said here, I think it's a good balance, and I will support this project.
I have a question for my architect friends. How do you guys see the treatment of the Chicago Avenue windows given the use of that space and what's being proposed?
Do you want to answer? So I was really pleased to see the drawings that show actual natural light. I think that's a key component, and to not have it go all the way up. I do, that 70-30, right, is where you can still get some natural light in. Yeah, so it screens it. I think that's a really good opportunity. I am completely against anything that's branded or has advertising on it. I think that's awful. I think some local art would be ideal, perhaps student art even, something along that range, and maybe it's rotating would be delightful. I don't see what else they can do. I mean, I prefer that far and away to a bunch of vertical blinds, which are going to look like a bad motel. You got two thumbs down on cheap vertical blinds. So again, my thoughts on that are, I'm really glad that you guys addressed that. I think that's a really big component. And again, I don't think you're going to have a parking problem. But I think signage can mitigate all of your parking problems, and really good signage, and you've got competent professionals here who can come up with some really good ideas. So I think that you can solve the problem that way. With that, we are going to go through all kinds of stuff. There are 7 standards for a major variation, which is related to the parking. So number 1, the requested variation will not have a substantial adverse impact on the use, enjoyment, or property values of adjoining properties. So this has really two sides to it. One, of course, is that a property that is activated and leased certainly adds more value to the neighborhood. There has been some discussion about the adverse impact of parking on the neighborhood, and I guess we feel that given the size of the facility and the dedicated spaces for the public and for patients has mitigated that substantial adverse impact. So we find that those standards have been met. Number 2, the requested variation is in keeping with the intent of the zoning ordinance. The intent is to allow people to develop spaces and to be able to bring in businesses to activate spaces. And so I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 3, the alleged hardship or practical difficulty is peculiar to the property. This was a PUD that was negotiated long and hard by a lot of people many years ago. And so there are a set of there are very specific limitations and restrictions given the lot and the development of the lot. So all of that is peculiar to this property. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 4, the property owner would suffer a particular hardship or practical difficulty as distinguished from a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were to be carried out. I think what we're talking about here particularly is the fact that it hasn't been leased for 2 years, and that's a long time. And I know that that is an important intersection and corner in the city of Evanston, and to have that go for so long without that being filled has been a thorn in a lot of people's sides. So I think that particular hardship alone is one of the reasons that it makes it imperative that we go forward with this sort of variation. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 5, the purpose of the variation is not based exclusively upon a desire to extract additional income from the property or that there is a public benefit. Now, this is a for-profit company and their goal is to make money. So I really perceive there to be a large public benefit to providing an immediate care center in Southeast Evanston. As it was pointed out, there aren't many people who know about the one on Church and Maple. But something in that immediate area where there is a lot of condominium and apartment buildings where people can walk to it then, I think that there's a real need and a service there. So I do believe that that public benefit standard has been met. Number 6, the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person having an interest in the property. This was all developed long before the current tenant was contemplating putting a space there, so that standard has been met. And number 7, the requested variation requires the least deviation from the applicable regulation among the feasible options identified before the Zoning Board of Appeals. There really are no feasible options here. There's either the 8 spaces on site or the 8 spaces on site and the 3 off site for the employees. So this is the least variation. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Now we're going to go through the 9 standards for special uses. And number 1, it is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. It is, and so that standard has been met. Number 2, no, because it doesn't really matter, because it's all just going to a recommendation. Yep. Just doing this for, people who are watching. I'm counting on your wife to get my ratings up. Number 2, it's in keeping with purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time to time. Again, the 2 goals of the comprehensive plan are to promote the growth and redevelopment to strengthen our economic base. This development does both of those things, and so I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 3, it will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types in the immediate neighborhood and the effect of the proposed type of special use upon the city as a whole. I don't believe that there are many special uses necessarily in that.
Granted the chiropractic.
Right, but that's not like there's, I don't know. It doesn't seem like that there are that many special uses, but there certainly aren't many medical special uses in that area.
Right.
And so I do believe, I do not think that there will be a negative cumulative effect, again, given the size of the operation and the parking that is coming with it. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 4, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of the property in the neighborhood. Again, a leased property is a valuable property. And so I think that will continue to raise property values and in fact make it a more desirable location for some people to live given their proximity to immediate care. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 5, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. There's certainly bus lines, train lines, and there is parking provided. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 6, it does not cause undue traffic congestion. I am concerned about the drop-offs, and so I do think that conditioning it with staff to review some potential for signage about no drop-offs. I think if we can address it in that manner, I think that we can probably solve or mitigate some of that traffic congestion that might happen by thoughtless patients. So I do believe that that standard has been met. Number 7, it preserves significant historical and architectural resources. That does not apply. Number 8, it preserves significant natural and environmental features. That does not apply. And number 9, it complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances, which it will once it gets the permits and licenses it is necessary. So I think the things we're talking about needing to condition are hours of operation. So local retail is 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. I think they've asked from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. I don't see them extending hours because nobody wants to work that long. But how do we feel about hours? Do we want to make them longer or leave them as they are?
I think we should condition them on the hours as requested.
So 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. I think we do want to condition something where staff reviews a no drop-off signage and the efficacy of that and how that might be implemented. I think we do want to condition this on significantly better signage for free parking and to make that parking clear that it is for North Shore and not just retail.
From the exterior.
From the exterior, absolutely. Absolutely.
I agree.
I want a
with-
bunch of arrows that point me around and I'm, red, whatever, and I'm going around.
I agree with clearer signage for the patient parking. I'm unclear on your first point.
Yeah.
And I know that Dapper addressed this, and so maybe I'm not understanding it yet.
Yeah.
Is there not an opportunity to, I thought I heard that there might be an opportunity to create a drop-off zone
I don't
on
think there
Chicago
is.
Avenue. So Main Street, I can totally picture it. It's entirely metered parking.
Right.
But I thought I heard that there was a place potentially to create a drop-off area, a pullover area, whatever we want to call it, on Chicago Avenue. Would that not be prudent to actually to consider something like that, given human nature in this type of use? Would that not be prudent?
No. At Dapper, it was specified that the city would not create a drop-off or loading zone. The city does not want to take away any street parking that is currently there, given what the demand is, and there is no other safe location where drop-off could occur.
Were there any other conditions? Obviously, the employees park off-site. Hours of operation. No advertising on the murals?
Yep, that's a good one. I guess I'll make a motion then.
Thank you.
In the matter ZBA 18 ZMJV-0106 regarding the application for 524 Main Street, I move that we recommend that City Council approve the special use and major variation requested with the following conditions. One, that the hours, of operation be limited from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week, which is greater than what you applied for on the weekends. Two, that the applicant develop the property with respect to parking as they've committed, which is to have 3 dedicated off-site parking spaces for employees, and that employees not be permitted to park elsewhere other than those 3 spots, and 8 dedicated spots for patients in the retail parking space in the building. An additional condition would be that the murals from the window graphics that are installed facing the street not be commercial in nature. And another condition would be that the building and/or North Shore provide or together provide signage from the exterior that directs patients, one, that there are no drop-offs permitted, and 2, that the retail parking is available and directing them to that parking. And I guess the last condition, that the business and property be developed in accordance with the documents and testimony submitted.
Second.
I think there's going to be a friend.
And that the Chicago Avenue door be unlocked from the outside
During business
during
operation.
business hours, during all business hours of operation.
Yes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And with that, you go to City Council with a recommendation for approval. Now, I know everybody on this board wants to leave, but I would like to ask for input on one thing. There's been discussions in the city at combining zoning with plan commission. Thoughts from anybody here?
No.
On the pros or cons? I got one big no. Anybody else?
I'm all for efficiency. And that said, on the 2 joint meetings we've had, I think this calendar year, I found those to be less than efficient because we are considering different issues in different conditions as it relates to those issues. And I would have to understand better from staff why they would want to blend those two boards to feel otherwise.
I think staff's main goal is efficiency. I'm not sure how it gets more efficient, but
it might be staff efficient, but I don't think it's board
efficient.
I
think it's not only isn't it board efficient, but in my opinion, having combined meetings from entities that have different missions and standards also can curb free thought or increase, what's the word I'm looking for? Forced common thinking.
Groupthink?
Groupthink, thank you. Well, no, groupthink can be good. I think more like forced common thinking. I don't think it's good for the health of the two boards to meet jointly.
And I think that they would be blurring the lines, too, between what somebody's trying to get out of one board versus the other.
And tell me how you think that's bad.
What, a blurred line?
Yeah. And it's okay. I don't mean to put you on the spot. Just if you want to think about it and can get something back to me, that would be great, because we're having discussions about this. And so I'd like to hear from my fellow board members.
The reason I'm saying, okay, so if I know that I have to come before the zoning board, like Lisa was saying, the last meeting that we had with them, I mean, we sat here and, I mean, my head was spinning. I don't know if there's, I mean...
You mean the last joint meeting we had? Right, okay.
Right, with them. I mean, it seemed like they were long, it was just elongating everything. And then for somebody who's coming here for a zoning issue,
right,
versus having to go through hoops and everything else, I don't know that would make it any efficient for us.
What I would ask is whether we could get maybe a memo from the city staff that would. well, I think that what I would like to see is what the city is proposing in terms of combining the two boards, where the commonality is. If we're going to be combining them so that we can just have longer meetings, and then less frequent meetings, I don't think that makes sense. But if there is enough commonality in the Plan Commission and ZBA, and clients can kind of kill two birds with one stone, and city staff can compile it. But I would really want to see the commonality.
Well, let's just get city council here with us, and we don't have to recommend to them. They can vote at the same time as us.
Melissa, is it considered good practice, and is that how it's handled in other municipalities?
That is a trend among other municipalities.
You want to comment on how many municipalities do that and how many are in the North Shore?
Offhand, I don't know. I've stumbled across, I think, 3 as I have not been looking for them. I've been on their websites for other various things.
Sure.
So they are out there. It is a newer trend. I think a lot of it has to do with how much staff time goes into committees and preparing packets and cases, and that in this day and age, municipalities don't always have that staff. But to Mary Beth's original point, we are in stage 1 of thinking about maybe doing this. If it were to occur, it would be in years in the future, likely, and it would take a lot of changes to the current zoning ordinance. The idea would not be to cram 16 board and committee members into one room and listen to a ton of cases or have a ton of meetings. We would first go through what kinds of cases are regularly coming to the board and getting the same determinations, and see if there's a way to make those administrative and save everyone time and money. And if we could get to the point of cutting down on the number of cases that the zoning board is seeing, as well as the plan commission, then it may be worthwhile to combine everything and save staff some more time.
And then would you have, and you might not know the answer to this yet, would you have sort of zoning board members, if you will, sort of having purview over the issues that we have now, and the plan commission members having purview over what they do now?
No.
Or you would have one board?
It would be one board
that
that hears all of that. And one of the great things about that is that the same people who are hearing the cases and hearing what the problems in the city code are the same people who can now recommend those text amendment changes.
So to me, it seems like having a combined board with a single mission may be a great long-term goal, but having joint board meetings or joint board consideration is not a good short or long-term goal.
Can I ask you guys if you had you chose to be on zoning, would you choose to be on plan commission?
Not after 10 years on zoning.
Yeah. So start over. I'm just asking the question because I think there's a fundamental difference in the type of person who is interested in this aspect of planning and who is interested in the plan commission part of planning. Is that true or is that false?
Well, I think to be fair, when we elected to serve or were encouraged to serve, there were positions that were open at the time. So it's not as though I flipped through and said, which commission do I want to be on? Maybe economic development, but the fact of the matter is you.
So I'm the only one who actively sought out zoning, ZBA. I am the only person. Okay.
I can attest that in the last, I'm going to say 5 years, it has been incredibly difficult to get people onto boards and committees.
Right. I wanted the liquor board.
They don't give free samples there, Mary.
No coffee.
I know, we're getting gypped. So anybody else thoughts on whether they would serve on one versus the other?
I'm a little bit more on being architect, of course, and I have to say that.
Yeah.
I'm more inclined if we need to, let's say, make a little bit more efficiency, and if we are inclined to combine committees, I'm more inclined to combine with the project review, design and
with
project
DAPR.
review with DAPR.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of going one and the same things twice, many of them. I know that DAPR is with all the disciplines, like the engineering, yes, but wouldn't be, for instance, as an example, wouldn't be better to be a combined committee and the different, I call them trades in the staff, give like written opinion, and then there is a committee that combines everything and decides. And it is similar in many aspects. Once again, mainly because it's architecture and everything in it.
Right.
I'm not so familiar with what the plan committee does most of the time, but I see a difference in the tasks that are kind of decided and related between the two committees. I find much more similarities between DAPR and the zoning board rather than between the zoning board and the Planning and Development Committee. So that's maybe it's a kind of a too narrow opinion, but that's what I see most of the time. And you see, we're usually using the recommendations of the DAPR very often because they are like brothers in what we're doing, while with the Planning and Development Committee we have much more rare common topics. So, opinion.
That's a good observation, I think.
Excellent.
But in answer to your question, Mary Beth, philosophically, I would not be opposed to overseeing the tasks of the Plan Commission. As you described, this was the opening that suited my skill sets and background, and I think my skill sets and background would similarly be suited to Plan Commission. So from that viewpoint, I think it makes sense. But from the joint boards hearings that we've had, those have been painful, given the current structure.
Yes.
Yeah, give me some bamboo shoots under the fingernails.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Okay.
I move that we
We've given
adjourn.
Melissa some good feedback.
Move to adjourn.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.